So I see Ashley is on. Thank you, Ashley, for joining us. I will introduce our speaker, and we are talking about emotions on today. And we are in our 16th week of our 120 days to a happy new you. So we only have a couple of weeks left before we're done and we get to celebrate. But let me introduce our speaker, Ashley Williams. She is a registered nurse with 15 years of experience, a certified yoga instructor, meditation guide, and speaker. As the creator and visionary behind Wellness in Depth, she is dedicated to fostering transformation, healing, and self-discovery through holistic wellness. Combining her expertise, in the healthcare industry with holistic wellness practices, she empowers individuals and organizations to embrace radical self-care, intentional living, and meaningful transformation. That is awesome. And her company is called Wellness in Depth. Thank you so much, Ashley, for joining us on today.
Yes, thank you for having me. I'm so happy to be here. Sorry I was hopping in a little late, just trying to get technology together. But I am so happy to be here.
Yes, glad to have you. We're looking forward to hearing what you have to tell us about emotions. I was just
Yeah,
explaining how important emotions are. It's something that we don't even really think about as much.
right, right. That's something that we don't think about, and sometimes it's just things that are just not, socially accepted, or even talked about on a normal basis. It's something that we try to like shy away from or not really talk a whole lot about. So
Mhm.
um, I'm happy to kind of dive into this and just, um, cultivate a conversation about how, this is a part of holistic health. It's this is just a part of it, that helps us to have a full holistic, health perspective in our lives. So we kind of went in you already gave the introduction of me, so we don't even have to talk about that part. You guys know who I am. So you talked about who I am and what I offer. This business, per se, I call it a service more than a business, started when I got divorced in 2021, and I really just didn't have the space to heal and grieve and grow. So I created this. It wasn't Wellness in Depth then. It was another name, but it was still the same, vision. So um, it's kind of morphed as far as name-wise, and I've just updated some of the values and things of that nature. But it's still the same thing. Holistic health is just really important to me, and trying to get all the wheels of the train on the track. And so emotional intelligence and mastery is something that I'm passionate about. So I'm going to hop right in, okay? Before we get into really talking about emotional intelligence and mastering your emotions, I think the really, really important thing is to understand, like, what are emotions, okay? So emotions are complex psychological and physiological responses that arise as a reaction to an internal or an external experience. They're signals from our nervous system that help us interpret our environment and our place in it. So basically, for lack of better terms, think of emotions as a response that is mental and physical. So it involves not just one component, and it's not something that is just single focused. It is a very layered and multifaceted thing. So, emotions can arise from something that we are dealing with inside that no one knows about, or from an event or an experience that is happening externally. And emotions signal our nervous system about, okay, like, what's going on? What do we need to do? Do we need to calm down? Is this fight or flight? Is there something I need to figure out? So emotions are messengers. They create physiological responses. They kind of carve out these mental events in our mind. And they're also social cues. So if you're having a certain emotion, your body and your brain all work together to say, social cues like what should I do? What should I do in this setting? What should I do in this moment? So think of emotions as that. A lot of times we kind of like get emotions and feelings like we say that they are kind of like interchangeable terms, but there are some differences, okay, to emotions and feelings. So here we are, emotions versus feelings, okay? So emotions are the body's immediate response. So they are typically instinctive. They can often be unconscious, and they are also tied to survival. So when you think of survival, you're thinking obviously sometimes there are, you know, life-threatening things that can be going on, right? But that's not always the case. It could just be, how do I survive in this moment, or how do I survive this event, or how do I survive this experience? Um, Conversely, feelings are the conscious awareness of the emotions, and they are often shaped by your memory, your culture, your beliefs, and your meaning. So there's quite of a difference there, and I really wanted to hone in on this because if this is something that's like not understood, you won't really be able to practice emotional intelligence, and then you won't be able to master your emotions. So an example is that you may feel fear, right? So fear, you feel fear. That's an emotion that you feel when someone raises their voice, maybe. But you feel hurt or disrespected when you reflect on the why. So that's just an example of kind of like drilling down the action of something or experience of some that you may have, someone raising their voice, and the emotion is fear, but the feeling is feeling hurt or disrespected. Right. So this is the feelings wheel. So you have fearful, angry, disgusted, sad, happy, surprised, bad. Okay. So something that I always encourage and something that I constantly have to work on is really naming, what I'm experiencing. When you are trying to practice emotional intelligence, it really helps to be able to speak to emotions and feelings, right? So if we look under, let's say, fearful, right? Under fearful, they have several words. You could feel rejected. You could feel persecuted. You could feel worthless, inferior, overwhelmed, right? So then let's go to happy, a more, positive type of emotion. You could feel proud. You could feel curious. You could feel inquisitive, respected, loving, sensitive, hopeful, sad. Under the sad one, that could, yield you feeling ashamed or inferior, embarrassed, hurt. So this is something that I really, really would encourage you to carry with you in any way that you can. You can Google this, you can find this and have it on your phone. This is something that I've, picked up from therapy, and I use it personally, and, I always use it in my sessions. So something good to have to kind of be able to give your feelings and your emotions words, to be able to be very descriptive. Telling someone I'm mad at you is okay, right? Like it's a start. But, I think a better sentence structure of it is, I'm angry because you yelled at me, and that makes me feel really disrespected and withdrawn at this time. Like if you can't speak to your emotions, there creates a void of resolve, maybe with another person or even resolve with yourself. Um, I think that, that takes practice to be able to name things. Um, but I'm going to talk a lot for this and get back to the PowerPoint, but I would just love for you guys to hold that if you can in your space. Um, so when we get into emotional intelligence, okay, um, emotional intelligence is simply the ability to recognize, understand, and manage our own emotions. Okay? So recognize, understand, and manage our own emotions. Okay? And also, it's being able to recognize, understand, and sometimes influence the emotions of others. So a lot of times when we think about emotional intelligence, we're like, oh, like it's me. Like I have to be so super intelligent about my emotions. Or sometimes people think it's like I can be intelligent about the emotions of other people, right? But it's really important to understand that it's a dual role. It's understanding your own emotions, recognizing them, understanding them, managing them, as well as being able to do that for other people as well. So I'm just going to drill down because we have like five pillars here when we get under emotional intelligence. I'm sure you guys can still see that I'm on the same slide here. So when we talk about the five pillars, there is self-awareness, regulation, motivation, empathy, and then your social skills regarding these things, okay? So I'm just going to break this down. This was kind of lengthy to put on a million slides, and I would love to talk through things more so than you guys reading, and then you can just jot down like what's important for you, okay? So pillar one, self-awareness, okay? So self-awareness basically consists of the ability to recognize and understand emotions, triggers, and internal states, okay? So that is totally an inward focused process. You don't really have to recruit anybody to do that. That's something that you learn over time on your own. Being able to recognize and understand emotions, triggers, and internal states. So when we're on this topic of self-awareness, it's important to understand that naming your emotions accurately is really, really important. That goes back to the feelings wheel, not just saying, oh, well, I'm feeling off today, being able to say, I'm feeling disappointed, being able to name it. And I think something really, really important that I always say or I've learned is if you can name it, you can tame it. So if you can name the emotion, you can tame it, you can regulate it, you can transmute it, you can, gain some understanding about it. When we get to self-regulation, okay? Self-regulation, again, well, here it's regulation, but you can also think of this as self-regulation as well, an inward focused process, is the ability to manage and modulate emotional responses. I'll repeat it again. It's the ability to manage and modulate your emotional responses. So that just really creates an opportunity for us to respond rather than to react impulsively. Okay? So when we get into self-regulation, really, really important thing to understand about self-regulation is developing some skills between the event happening and when you decide to respond. And notice I didn't say react, I said respond. So sometimes that's like, okay, I'm going to listen to everything that is happening here, or whatever is being said. I'm going to process this event, and I'm going to do nothing for 15 minutes. Or I'm going to just take some deep breaths. Or I'm going to have some emotional boundaries that are in place that, help me to not be reactive in the situation. Or, like when we started, you can implement some type of breath work. Or, you know what? I'm really feeling disrespected. I'm going to go take a 10-minute walk and I'll reconvene with you when I'm back. Those are things that you can think of when we're talking about regulation, okay? So when we get to motivation, okay, this is the ability to use your emotions to guide you towards purpose, growth, and inner drive. And I'll say that again. When we get to motivation, it is the ability to use your emotions to guide you towards purpose, growth, and inner drive. Okay? So the ability to channel emotions into actions, like allowing frustration maybe is an example to inspire you to change something. If you feel like extremely frustrated about something, you're going to say, okay, I'm frustrated about this or my job or how my kids are behaving or what my spouse is doing or anything that you can think of. Allowing that to inspire some type of change or, an alter to a pattern or whatever you may be specifically dealing with. And it also helps you to align goals with your values and emotional truths. So motivation is like, hey, I have all this information, and now, like, how can I sprout some type of growth from this? Um, and this is just really important because when you get to emotional mastery, it's going to help you to understand that emotional mastery is not about just being really, really chill or relaxed or calm all the time. It's about letting your emotions feel meaningful movement, right? And meaningful motivation to forge some new paths in your life, all right? Empathy, right? Empathy is the ability to understand and feel what others are feeling. And the most important thing about that is being able to hold space for other people. A lot of times we can deal really well with our own emotions. When it comes to other people, sometimes this is a challenge, right? And I'm speaking from this not as solely an expert. I'm also speaking from these are things that I personally have to practice and deal with. Being able to feel what others are feeling, okay? And if you cannot feel that, if you cannot understand that, holding the space for other people to do so, okay? And a lot of this is you can, coin it as having an other awareness. Okay, so it's really important being able to be attuning to emotional energy and body language. Okay, so this is when we start getting into like what are other people dealing with. Okay, emotional intelligence, like what is the other person experiencing? Like what is their body language telling me? What's their emotional energy telling me? Like what vibe am I getting from them? That's the practice of emotional intelligence when it's outward focused when it's on other people, okay? Um, and having compassion for people, right, versus emotional enmeshment, okay? So that is basically like I'm compassionate towards you, I have empathy towards you, but I am not going to be enmeshed in this, meaning I'm not going to get so um, deeply embedded into your own emotions. I can practice compassion. I can practice empathy, but I don't have to be molded deeply into the process. Okay. And lastly, the social skills. Okay. And that is the ability to navigate relationships and social dynamics in a way that's emotionally attuned and effective. All right. So that's when we get into that, that kind of also crosses over to some relational intelligence. Okay, now that I can understand emotions and what's going on with this person, their emotional energy and their body language and all the cues that I'm meeting, how can I relate to them? How can I have healthy communication with them? How can conflict resolution be rooted in some type of understanding versus defensiveness? Okay. And building emotionally safe environments, extremely important when it comes to social skills. Okay. People are more prone to be emotionally transparent and vulnerable with you if they feel they have a safe environment, right? So that means I can, describe my emotions, my feelings, what I'm dealing with, what prompted it, and it's safe here. Somebody's going to be compassionate towards me. Somebody is going to be empathetic to me. They're going to be also honest with me, and we can have a healthy communication. But this is not a defensive environment. This is not a reactive environment. That creates the ability to be extremely emotionally intelligent. Okay, so for this section that we just kind of talked about, I'm gonna, give you two journal prompts. You can see them there. You can choose whichever one you want. The first one is, what emotions dominate my inner world lately? And then the second one is, what did I learn? Where did I learn how to handle them? Okay, so if you think back to that feelings wheel, you can pull that up on your phone if you want. I don't know how you guys are tuning in. You can think about that. Just pick an emotion that you feel. Maybe you feel frustrated, or maybe you feel grateful or gratitude. What emotions are dominating your inner world, and where did you learn how to handle them? I will kind of move over to our next section here, and we are talking about self-awareness and emotional patterns. Okay, this is important. Okay, being able to be self-aware, and let's just talk about self-awareness for a moment. Okay. Um, Gaining self awareness really, really, really is cultivated from spending a lot of time alone, right? People can tell you how you are. They can say that you are reactive, or you are mean, or you are whatever. I think it's a really good practice to not take what they say as, just, the ultimate, last final say, but taking that information and saying, man, people have said that I can be this way or that way. Spending time with yourself and becoming really, really, really aware of you. Are the things that people say about me accurate? How am I emotionally? When I get in settings with other people, in platonic relationships, in marriage relationships, in a relationship from a, parent to a child, like, how am I? Like, you don't gain that by being all the time in community. It's a lot of time, quiet time with yourself, learning yourself, learning what triggers me, what upsets me. When I do feel emotional, like, how do I manage myself in social settings? Like, am I so undone that I have to step away? Or am I able to say, all right, 5 deep breaths, I'm not going to focus on that. I'm not going to even give that my energy. This is how I manage that. That's really important. And that, when I started this business in 2021, now here we are in 2025, I am almost amazed at my own growth, right, in this, and being able to know myself. A lot of this is rooted in knowing you. A lot of this is inward focus work, okay? So, when we are talking about also emotional patterns, okay, emotional autopilot. A lot of us are just on, like, this is who I am, this is what I've done, this is what I'm used to, this is how I was raised, this is just always the way that it's been, and it's just kind of like, no. Um, what's familiar is not always purposeful or effective. I think pushing yourself out of your comfort zone, it's really easy to just kind of stay in the saddle of, like, what's comfortable for you, and not pushing yourself to really know your emotions, your feelings, or even being interested to know for others. We really stay in the same patterns. But then we'll get these results that are like, man, I don't really like how this relationship is going, or I don't like how my boss talks to me, or I would love to have a better, communication with my child or my sister or my brother or whoever it is. But we fail to realize that we're on autopilot. Like, we are just on, like, cruise control emotionally. So you are literally the CEO of your life. I'm the CEO of my life. And when I say CEO, you are the chief emotional officer of your life. Like you run the show. There, you don't have to be like an employee of your own life. No, you run it. You're the CEO. So always remember that chief emotional officer. I'm the CEO of my own life. I'm in all things and in all ways. And I'm managing my emotions, and I'm also super aware of others. So just jot that down and always know that. Also, here we are again, back to reaction versus response. We've kind of like dug into that really, really well. Being able to know when am I being reactive? When am I having a reaction to something versus am I responding? I think a really, really good thing to do is to get really, really deep into if the action that is action or behavior or decision or something that is being offered to you, given to you, how would you like to be responded to? So if you would like a loving response, if you would like a graceful response, if you would like an empathetic, compassionate, understanding response, how about learning how to offer that to others? You have to be the CEO and know I'm being really reactive right now. I need to check out. I need to say I need 15 minutes. I need to say, you know what? No. And sometimes your response is an emotional boundary. How you're talking to me is really disrespectful. That's not something that I'm going to tolerate. So maybe we can just circle back at another time. I think that that's like extremely important, being able to have the boundary, being able to say that to people. And that takes bravery, that takes courage to do that. But I don't think it's anything that is impossible. And then back to the last bullet, name it to tame it. Like, you will manage nothing that you cannot name. It's completely impossible. So if you're not able to put any type of name to it, you can't explain it, you can't describe it, there's no resolve. You can have no resolve to those type of things at all. So on to another opportunity, and for questions or journaling, two more prompts that you can use if you choose. What's an emotion I often suppress or overexpress? That's a really important one because there are sometimes our emotions that you're just like, oh, I'm just like not gonna say anything about it. I'm not gonna discuss it. Or there could be emotions that you're just like extremely, extremely expressive about, and it's just like, am I overdoing it here? Being able to have the self-awareness of that, and more importantly, what might it be trying to teach me? So if you have emotion, like what could you learn from it? Like what is something that you can pick up from that? All right, I'm pretty sure that everyone is done journaling, if they did journal. So then we'll move over from just the pathway from intelligence to mastery. Um, I think that when you are considering the component of emotional intelligence, I think that it's always room for growth. You're always learning something. Like me, I'm typically, always reading something, and people like hear things that I say, and like, you're so smart. My response is always, I just read a lot. I just read a lot. So you'll find different things that are like that you add to your bank of knowledge regarding emotional intelligence. You learn more things about yourself. You learn things about other people. How to manage them, things to look at, things to consider. And some things you're like, yeah, that's true. Like, I like that. And some things you're like, no, I don't really agree with that. So I think that emotional intelligence is always like just adding your knowledge and then refining it to what you believe is effective for your practice of emotional intelligence. Um, so I think that when it's moving from intelligence to mastery, it's a process of knowing versus embodying it. So You have the skills to practice your self-awareness and the things that are going on with you internally, and then you have the skills of also being able to practice those skills externally, understanding, practicing empathy, being compassionate, and then you move over to embodying it, making it tangible, making it applicable practice for you. And that doesn't mean that you get it right all the time, because that's just completely impossible. Um, but really, really, really honing in on the intelligence part, then you can get to like, okay, like I can master this, right? I can be in the moment. I can be self-aware. I can recognize where somebody else is. They're feeling sadness. They're feeling anger, and being able to determine what to do with that, right? And it's different for everybody. So the biggest thing that I always arrow through on the second bullet is being able to recognize, regulate, and then rewire. Um, the rewiring part is just really creating different neural pathways in your brain for how you manage something. Um, you know, if you have something that you deal with, like we were talking just about you with your sadness, right? So, just knowing things that happened in your childhood and, how you managed it, you would just kind of like shut down, right? And saying, all right, well, I'm just going to suppress this emotion because I expressed this emotion and this is what happened, right? But when you get into rewiring, a lot of therapists use CBT, which is cognitive behavioral therapy, and really forging a new pathway for that. So the old pathway, when you do cognitive behavioral therapy, the old pathway may have been when I was a kid or when I experienced this. Um, um, this is the feeling that I had, and this is how I would respond based on whatever the action was, right? So that's one part of it. But when you get into trying to forge new pathways, you'll say the same thing over again. This is what happened to me. This is what the event. This is how it made me feel. But this was my action. So it's experiencing the same type of feeling and experience, the same whatever event happened to you, but rewiring. Okay, what will I do differently this time? Um, and you can be a master at this and still like not get it right. When we talk, I think we all can like understand the recognize part, but the regulate part, right? Like I always think of that as like some type of maybe perhaps like a balance beam or something. In school, like in science lab, I remember that a lot. And it's like, okay, we're trying to put something on one side, and then we have some things on the other side, but we're trying to get them to be like balanced. That's what I think of regulating, right? If you look at a balance beam, if you guys ever remember doing that in school, you would get it kind of like almost even, right? It was never really perfect, but it was like, okay, like I think this is like as best as that it's going to get. I think of that as emotionally regulating, and then getting to that pathway of rewiring. So think of that as your regulation process. I would just like think of the balancing of those weights. You can have a really heavy weight, anger, frustration, pain, heartbreak, disappointment, and then you got something that's really, really heavy on that side, right? So then you got to start figuring out, okay, what am I going to put on this other side to balance this out? All right, we're going to deep breathe. Okay, so then that side that has all that emotion on it is getting a little bit less, right? So what are we doing to regulate? Figuring that whole process out, and that is personal, right? That's internal, but then also figuring out how to do it for other people. You know what I'm saying? And because sometimes other people cannot, and that's a part of being a true master of it. I deal with this with my kids, right? Like they're 10 and 11, two daughters. So imagine I have a household of a lot of emotions, mine plus theirs, okay? Um, and, of course we have a male in the household, but it's like that's still three women worth of emotions, and it's a lot, okay? So regulating it. A 10 and 11-year-old can't always regulate their emotions, right? So if I'm a master at this, how can I create some emotional balance in a relationship or in a dynamic or in an environment, in a setting, okay? Super, super important to be able to delve into that and to be able to do that, all right? Here we go. Tools for regulation. So when you're in that process, and process breath work, that's the first thing. When you are deep breathing, okay, deep breathing will activate your parasympathetic nervous system, and that's the part of your nervous system that says, "I am safe here. All is well here. I don't need to flee from this environment. Everything is okay. There's safety here." And I think the important thing about that is realizing that when you are doing breath work and it's signaling that to your body, it's not always true. You could be around, someone or in an environment or in a situation that doesn't always feel safe, but the safety is internal. That's what regulation is about. Another option, movement. Um, Getting out, walking away. And sometimes you cannot always walk away. What if you're in a meeting at work? What if you're in a meeting with your family and it's a tense topic? Maybe you cannot move. Finding some movement that will work in that moment. If you cannot go take a walk and get some fresh air, you know what? I'm going to do some neck rolls. I'm going to go left ear to left shoulder, and I'm going to do right ear to right shoulder, okay? Then I'm going to look back up at the ceiling, and I'm going to look down. I'm going to do chin to chest. Nobody has to know what that's for. That's regulation. And being able to know that sometimes I can't always leave my environment, okay? And reframing is a big thing. A lot of times, we look at something in a certain way, and it's like, nah, it's not actually that. That's not actually true. That's not a true thing, okay? And then emotional vocabulary. That's going to be your biggest thing. That's going to be your biggest thing for this whole process of becoming intelligent and becoming a master at it. Is being able to use your words. That's a big thing that people struggle with. Kids all the way through adults. Every day my kids come home. How was your day? Good. How was your lunch? Good. How was the class? Good. No. So I want to know more. Explain it to me. And then we'll get into the story. Well, then at lunch, and then I sat with this person, and we talked about this, and she had this to eat, and I had this to eat, and we had a fun time. Put some vocabulary to it. You putting the vocabulary to it, and asking other people to put some vocabulary to it. People tell you, "I'm upset with you. Give me a story. Give me some more information about it. Tell me something. I need to know something." And I think a big part of this is triggers, emotional triggers. Understanding that they are indicators of something, okay? They're not enemies. So triggers are indicators, not enemies. Um, and knowing when you're triggered, right? And what to do with that, how to manage that, okay? So we're back to our journal prompt and break. Um, Good prompt for the first one, amazing one. What is one emotional pattern I'm ready to rewrite? That's when we get into that cognitive behavioral therapy. So that is something to think about. And second prompt, what will it take for me to regulate and not react? So these might be the most important prompts throughout the whole slide, all of the slides. What is one emotional pattern I'm ready to rewrite? That takes a lot of self-awareness to say, you know what, I don't really want to do that anymore. Or when I do this, I don't like the way that I feel. Or when I do this, I don't like how it makes other people feel, right? That's bravery. That's emotional honesty. And then what would it take for me to regulate and not react? Okay, I'm gonna go into just the last part, and what I love about this work and discussing this is, um, we kind of dig through everything, and by the time we get to the end, it's all the stuff we've already talked about that creates the mastery. And that's the thing about mastering emotions and mastering anything. When you're doing the work internally for yourself and also for other people, you realize, wow, when I get ready to want to be an expert in something or master something, I've been doing all the work and all the things that you need to do for mastery. You realize that it was embedded in your process the whole time. So here we are, pausing before you react, emotional vocabulary, self-forgiveness ritual, and I think that that part is really speaking to the importance of understanding. Man, sometimes I reacted and I didn't respond. I'm gonna forgive myself, or if somebody did that to me, I'm gonna forgive them, and having grace. You know, a lot of this is likely embedded. Your spiritual practices are embedded into this, right? So practicing grace and forgiveness may be a challenge, if you don't have some spiritual practices that are embedded into how you see forgiving people, and how you see extending grace, okay? Um, and an important thing that I would love for you to write down is that mastery includes missteps. Mastery includes missteps. So you are mastering anything, becoming an expert at anything, you're going to have some steps that are just like, ooh, that wasn't it. Like, that wasn't right. That was off a little bit. So, being able to understand that mastering something does not mean that you are perfecting it. When we talk about doing something consistently, right? Like, I say that I want to consistently, read my Bible, right? For me, I want to do it every day. Like, that's something that is important to me. A person that is trying to work up to every day, consistency for them may be like, I did it 5 times this week, and I'm building up to mastery, right? It's never perfection, okay? You have some missteps along the way, but you keep going. You keep going with that, and you just stay committed to the process. Stay committed to the process, and understanding that it is always a journey. Um, so we got a final prompt here. What's one new truth I'm carrying forward about my emotions? What is one new truth I'm carrying forward about my emotions? So that could be whatever, like, it could be a truth that is like about your emotions, or it could be like, hey, this is something that I learned, that I want to like do differently, that I want to implement, and it could be whatever, like maybe it's like, I want to implement emotional invitations, you know, it could be that. Um, it's, you know, specific to you. It doesn't have to be anything major. I really, really, really appreciate being here. I didn't know how, it was gonna go, but I loved how it went, so I hope that I'm invited back for something else. Um, I don't know if you guys are on social media, but I am on Instagram at Wellness in Depth. Um, and I think, I don't know, maybe on the flyer I saw that my phone number was there. You can contact me directly. If there anything that you would like to collaborate with me on, to have you have like things that are going on in your family, and this is something that you want to kind of like talk about to like bridge some gaps. I'm open for that. I do have like private, kind of settings and sessions where I can do that. Or if there's something that you personally want to work on with your own emotions, or anything healthcare related, right? I have my nursing background, so I'd love to talk to you, chat with you. My number is listed there. I thank you all for listening. I have so much gratitude for being here. And that's all I have for you all today.
Thank you so much, Ashley. Love the information. Can you tell us a little, because I've been on your Instagram and I saw you doing some things with a group of ladies, if I'm not mistaken. It was it wasn't yoga. Well, I think you did do yoga also, but it was one where you were sitting and they were kind of journaling, and they were in a circle or something.
Yeah, yeah. So several offerings like that. I think the last thing that I did was a friend of mine it was her birthday and she wanted a wellness themed birthday. And so a lot of what I do is not very like cookie cutter structured. You know, people come to me and they're like, hey, this is what's going on, or this is what I'm dealing with, or this is the kind of experience that I want. So I think that last one was we did some meditation and journaling. And I don't know if you guys are familiar with sound bowls, crystal sound bowls, that are just another tool that I use for relaxation and healing. But yeah, so I do have events that I offer. So I can definitely share those as they come up for sure. Um, but I think I always leave space for the kind of experience that people want, specifically for them. I think I just learned that from talking with people. And then they'll say, well, I kind of want to do this and I kind of want to do that. And they'll kind of tell me, and I'm like, okay, I think I got it. And they'll trust me from there. But yeah, I do have a lot of things that I've hosted for women, just space for them. I'm really, really big, like we said earlier, of holding space for people. And so typically, a lot of women that come and are involved in that, and people seem to really need that space. Like you talked about your sadness. People need spaces to feel, and I think that that is what I create. Um, and I always just bring it back to this being a part of just your holistic wellness journey. There's so many parts, uh, but I just focus on trying to bring all the parts together.
Oh, that is so beautiful. Yeah, your Instagram is really interesting. I just love, like I was going through it and I was watching some of the things that you've got going on. That is beautiful. I love it. But again, I thank you so much. Miss Peggy has a comment that says, "Thank you, Ashley. You are such a bright light, and you are."
Oh
Thank,
wow.
thank you again for coming on and sharing your insight with us. I think it was
Okay. You are so welcome. I look forward to seeing you soon somewhere.
yes, most definitely. Like I said, I will give you a call.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Okay. Bye bye.
Bye bye.